Here we're going to look at the Recolor Artwork Panel. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to try to explain everything there is available in that Recolor Artwork Panel and how to access it. So first I have a couple artboards here. I have my full values, I have some CMYK plus black, and I have just a full color image here. So I'm going to play around with that a little bit. So where I'm going to find that first, what I'll do is I will select all of this. So I'm going to select all these elements, and all these elements have value, or we can say a color, but there's no color on these, it's just the values. But applied to them is a gray from black to white, obviously. So what I could do with that, I'm going to go to edit and edit colors and recolor artwork. This is the one we're going to focus on today. And what this allows me to do is it allows me to play around with the colors, change the colors in this, preserve some colors, whatever the case is. Now I had it set where it opens up in advanced mode automatically, which I don't want for now. I just want to show you how to do that. So I'm going to click on this off of that. I'm going to OK. I'm going to do that again. Edit colors and recolor artwork. And now what I get this initial one that I look at here. And this is great. But I kind of want to get to the idea of where I could look at advanced options, and that's going to kind of give me more. And I will get to some of this later as well once I get into the advanced. So I'm going to click on advanced. It just gives me more options here, which I want to focus on. What I want to look at first is the idea top here. So what it's saying is that this color is chosen first. This is the base color. And I can have a bunch of the values in here as well because they're all selected here. And it does give me an option to look at all the different harmony rules, but because I am just looking at grayscale, there's not really, I could play around, but it's not really a great idea to play with all the harmony rules there. There's not really many colors in the color wheel there. Obviously it's just all values. What I could do is two things. I could either edit these colors or assign colors to the current colors I have. Because I actually don't have any colors in this, I'm actually not going to do any editing. I'm going to do that later on in one of these. But I am going to I'm going to focus on this and assign colors to the current colors I already have selected. So we're going to look at this panel. Now I wish this panel could open up a little bit more, but we do have the scroll bar here. This panel is very interesting, and there's a lot you could do here in this panel that's only on the assign. If I go to edit, you'll see that you could look at different ways to edit the colors, but right now I'm just on assign. This is what assign looks like. So what it's saying is the current colors I have are 11. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and 11. So there's 11 colors that Illustrator has found here. It understands the 11 different colors, or quite frankly, here it says values. Now what I can do with those, it's saying you can take that color and you can convert it to this new color. And because my recolor artwork is on, I'm going to click this back on too. My recolor art is on, and it will actually show me live what it would look like. Now, once again, these colors are the exact same, so nothing's really changing here. And if I do look at this and I look at these arrows are also saying, yes, this color is going to change to this color. But if I click on that arrow, what it's going to do is saying this color will not change anything. You've locked this layer, you've locked this color, it's not going to change anything. I can put anything in here, it's not going to turn. But if I click on that arrow again, it will allow me to, yes, you can. So there are certain colors, like let's pretend I didn't want to change this color. I could go find that color, lock it, and then it would not change. So let me show you what I can do with these values. What I'm able to do, number one, is I can play around with some presets, but I'm not looking at that right now. Once again, I'm only looking at the values here. I can look at the colors. Now there's many colors. I can say I want you to auto detect these colors. I only want to use 2 colors or 3 or 4 or 1 or all the colors. There's a couple different ways I could play around here. But first, let's just start with adding a color, some color schemes here. So what I've done, I've actually placed every harmony I think imaginable besides pentagram. I placed all these color harmonies here inside of my swatch panel. So my swatch panel, all my swatch panel here is actually showing up right here. So everything you see here is actually here. So what I can say is, you know what? I want all these colors to change to, let's say, because I have some like tetradic, I'm going to use like a tetradic red. So let's just go with this. I'm going to click on this. Now there's only 4 colors here. This is auto. If I want to say, no, I only want 1 color chosen, well, it's only going to put every color, all those colors into one row and say that all these colors are going to change to this color. Let's reset. I just wanted to show you that really quickly. I'm going to reset. Once you reset, it goes back to normal. Everything's kind of the way it was. I'm going to go back and click on tetradic. And I'm going to say I want all the colors. So it's going to give me more, obviously 1, 2, 3, 4 that I've chosen in this swatch. And what it's telling me now is that this color is now red. and that this color, or I should say value, is now green and so on. And you can see it. So that color that was once this is now this. Now, once again, if I click on this and I lock it, well, it's back to normal because I'm saying I don't want this color to change at all, but I do, and it will go back to yellow. Now, what I can also do is I can move these individual rows around. I can drag them and make them a part of another row. And whatever I put into this row will automatically turn to red. So let's try that. I'm going to take this value. I'm going to click and drag it. Look what happens. I'm going to place it, and there it is. And I could also even move these around to get a better understanding of how they work. So my dark and my light, so I can move these back and forth or whatever. But these two colors are now red, as you can see. But what it also did, it maintained the value of that color. So look, when I click on this or hover over this, this little arrow shows up and it's saying, do you want to keep the exact color? Do you want to preserve the tints or scale the tints? Now, preserving the tints, it'll keep the tints exactly how I've laid them out. If I say scale the tints, it is going to change the tints based on the value or the color. Actually, I should say the hue that I chose. So it's going to kind of play around with them a little bit to give me the best tint out of them, or the best contrast, I guess I could say too. If I just preserve it, it might just keep it very similar. This is not a bad idea. But if I just do pure exact, what should happen is those two would become the same. I actually must have gotten that one out of there. There we go. So those two colors will be exactly this hue, which I don't want. I want them to maintain I want to preserve the tint as well. So I'm going to get off of that, and now that tint is preserved. But because it's so close, I should click on scale the tint. So now I have a better understanding of what it looks like. So Illustrator was able to understand my values and then kind of not only preserve that tint, but also scale a little bit. So now that it's red, it will actually look like it's contrasted a little bit, and I can see the different value. So it's a couple different you could choose. So currently nothing is in the green row. So I was like, okay, let's play around. Let's take this one. I'm going to click and drag, put this in the green row. I'm going to put this one in the green row too, and maybe this one. And what it's doing, once again, if I click on this drop down, it's scaling the tints to make sure I can see those different values. If I just preserve the tints, what happens is, well, once again, it kind of does that to this one too. The green was doing pretty good, but I'm going to make sure, and it's applying to all of them. I could do this individual colors. I am going to scale the tints to make sure I can still get the different values for each of those hues. Once again, I'm going to continue going. I'm going to click and drag this one up to purple. So we see what's going on. This one is coming up to purple. So that value, so this next one, I'm going to bring up, which is right here. I'm going to bring up to yellow. So now that'll be yellow. And this next one will be yellow. See how they're kind of combining into one column. There we go. And I think I have one more. So now the black is saying, no, you cannot change the black. Well, but I want to change the black. So what I'll do, I'm going to move this up and attach it to one of these other colors. It doesn't matter. I'm going to attach this black, wherever this black is shown, I'm going to attach it to, let's say green. So now it's green. Okay, that's it. So I was able to take the current values that were chosen here and apply or assign a new color to them. Now, if I don't want that anymore, I want to say, you know what, I want black to be purple. Okay, bring down the purple. You know, I don't want black to be touched. Okay, bring it down here, and it's on its own. It's not being assigned to anything. Now, can I add a new color? Yes. If I right click on this one here, on any one of these values, I can say add new color. So there's my new color. And now I want to choose another value here or another color here. I could also just double click on this swatch and choose from the color picker. I could choose any color I want. Let's just say that one. Or I can go back to my color swatches again and they all appear. Now remember, I have every single swatch available, all my pure swatches, pure hues, and I can click on anything I want and say okay, and then whatever. So now that black is blue. And once again, I looked at this, the scaling tints is on. So if I were to add another value, let's take this lighter value, bring it down to this one. Now that one is also blue, and it's preserving or scaling the tint to make sure it matches with this hue that I chose, which happens to be blue. This is how this works. Now let's go a little bit further, just moving these around. If I were to click on any one of these, I have a couple options down here. I can make a new row, which there already are plenty of rows. There's plenty of unused rows here, so I could just move these around. But if I didn't have these extra rows, I can add a new row, which I just added a new row, and I can move these colors around these rows. Once again, I can click and drag this down here, or whatever the case is. If I want to exclude selected colors so they'll not be recolored, once again, if I don't want this black to be recolored, I can exclude it. And it goes down here, and once again, there's no color next to it, so I can actually get rid of it. So there's a couple different ways to do that, clicking on this, or I could actually now reattach it to something if I want. Currently, I do want to reattach it to, let's say, blue. Now, also what I can do, if I select multiple, I could separate colors into different rows. So if I selected a couple different colors, even these 4, even on different rows, I could place these and separate them onto different rows, or I could right click and separate colors into different rows. I could merge color into a row, into a single row. So that's a couple of things I could do. I could merge, that's also merge, which is merge, and I could separate, which is also separate. So you see that right clicking and clicking on these is the exact same thing. So let's try that. I'm going to select multiple. Oh, I kind of did that automatically, which I didn't want. Let me put that one back up there. And even down here, I'll select, hold down Shift or Command. It's kind of doing it for me, which I don't really want it to do yet. Select, right click, and merge these colors into one row. And there they go. They're all into one row. Now, what I could also do, I could take all those and just bring them down here. So there's a couple different ways. If I want to use these buttons or just do it manually, there's a couple of different ways to do that. Now, nothing is green, so let's put this black up to the green. Now the black will be converted to green. Now, I'm currently seeing it because Recolor Artwork's on. I could say, okay, that's fine. But before I do that, a couple more things I want to do. With just the red selected, what I can do with that, I can play around with the hue, the saturation, and the brightness. Meaning, just for this red, I can say, you know what, I could change the hue to anything I want, obviously, which I don't really want to do. I kind of want to keep it in this color scheme, this color harmony, so I'm going to bring it back to red. I could play around with the saturation of it, and obviously pull back some of that chroma so it's not there, but you'll see that it's scaling the tint again, right? It's making sure that I am seeing 2 different values there, which is pretty cool. And I can also play around the brightness. Now, if I go about halfway, I can still play around the saturation, make it a little more gray. If I bring it all the way down to closer to black, it obviously will just look black with maybe a hint of that hue, but not really. We can't really see it that well, right? This is not playing well. So we have to make sure that we're not getting away from getting too close to black and losing any of that hue or that chroma. So just playing around with this. So any color I could play around with. And of course I could change it from HSB to any of these color models. But I really love playing with HSB. I think it works really, really well. So I can control that specific color with HSB, which I really enjoy. But once again, I could do that with every color. If I'm kind of not happy with that, I can bring it back to full saturation. And same with the green. Each individual color could be played with. And if I want to remove this blue, actually, let's remove the color. I could right click and remove the color. And once again, that one was attached to blue, so let's attach it to the green, and now it's green, whatever the case is. Now the green itself, once again, I could play around with the saturation and the brightness. Very simple. And I could reset it, obviously, to get full saturation, full purity. I can click on the purple. Once again, I could play around, and I can desaturate. I can add black, or get the full color, or desaturate to gray. You know, whatever I want to do there. So each individual color can be played with on its own, which is really, really cool. Another thing I can do here is I can play around. Now this does a randomization, which gives you really, really cool options right away. Instead of trying to manually do everything yourself, it's like Illustrator, can help you out a little bit. So randomly change the color order, meaning these will stay the same no matter what. These colors will change order, meaning these colors will now attach to a different color here. So watch as these swap out. So I'm just going to randomly change the color order. So that the purple and the green changed. Oh, well, let's see where the red ends up going eventually. Okay, now the red dropped down here. So now these colors are attached to red. What it does, it really allows us to play around really quickly with different combinations. Now that's how that one works. The next one is randomly changes the saturation and the brightness. So that one only changes the color order. This one changes just the saturation and brightness randomly for I believe all colors there. Yeah, all the colors are changing, saturation randomly, and their brightness. And that's kind of it. And once again, if I kind of don't like it, I could always reset, go back to exactly where I started. Or I can go back to these, okay, let me bring you back up to pure saturation, whatever the case is, or try to find that color again here. Because I could click on that. I want that specific color to be used. Say I want it to be exactly green. Oh, and it does that too, actually. It always goes back to this initial red, what I don't want. So I'm actually going to go back to my tetradic. And I believe it was this one here. And there we go. And I can kind of find that again. So I'm glad that I had that in my swatch panel, because if it does mess up, I can't go back. I'm not able to like undo. I just have to reset and start all over again, which is, it does happen, which is okay. Now that is the way this works with assigning colors. Once again, I can play around with each individual one. I can assign the different colors that I've chosen to new colors. This is a great way to play around. It's really, really great. I'm going to say okay for now. I'm just going to let this go. And do I want to add this new swatch folder more or less to my swatch panel? I'll say no, I don't want to do that. I'm just going to keep it the way it is. It's fine, but I could, if I really liked it, I could keep it, attach it to my swatch panel. Now what I'm going to do here, I'm going to select these. I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to select all that, edit colors, and recolor artwork. All right, I'm in the same situation again. So once again, I have my CMYK. It's currently attached to its own color. So let's see some of the new colors here. What I can do, I'm going to try this one out. I'm going to do another tetradic because there's 4. I'm just going to select a random one. I'm going to attach it to those. Now I want all 4 colors. So it's going to should show all the colors. Nope, it's not adding that 4th one. Maybe because of that. Nope. And that's okay. What I'll do instead, I know that one was violet. I am going to add that. Yeah, it's really weird why it's not adding that. That's okay. I want to activate this one. I'm going to add a new color, and I'm going to make it that violet. Color swatches. Violet. Okay, and there we go. And once again, they're all kind of now attached. Once again, if I want the magenta to now also be this blue, I could do that in there, and I can get rid of that color or whatever the case is, but there's a play that we could, a lot of fun we could have there. So what I want to do now is I want to show you the editing colors. So I click on this orange, and I'm going to go to edit now. Now what it also does, because it's tetradic, what it did was it also kept my it's showing you on the color wheel, the tetradic color harmony, which is more or less two complementary colors. So I have like this orangey blue, and then this greenish, if you will, that goes to, well, kind of that orangey or green to blue, green to red-ish, but that would be its complement, which really works. Now, as you can see, what I could also do here, I have a choice of how I want this color wheel to show up. So this currently is the gradient color wheel, where it shows you all the different grades, the smooth color wheel. I have one where I could really separate them into their individual color families. And I have where I could show the actual colors that are being shown and used. But I'm going to stick to the smooth one, which is fine. The other option I have here next is I could show brightness and hue. So brightness and the hue are being shown on this, and I can go full. So see how that moves with this slider? I can show full brightness and the hue, so I can get to full white or its purity. I could bring it down, and obviously I'm getting closer to black. I'm not getting as much of that hue. And then the opposite, the other one I could choose is the saturation. So this is the saturation and hue. So I can, once again, if I bring it up to full saturation, I'm getting full saturation, but now it's bringing me down to dark. So really it's just showing you this slider here or this slider on the color wheel. That's it. And once again, I can kind of choose which values I want to find, but the hues will always stay there. The hues don't actually change, just the saturation or the brightness. Now what I could also find here, I could add new colors. I could add another area if I want to add a color. And that obviously breaks the harmony, but I could also delete that, say, nah, I don't want that anymore. Now, as you see, what I could do with this harmony, it's lock and play. I can move it around, and I can start playing around with all my colors. All the colors are changing based on where I'm moving this around. Now, what's happening though is I can actually unlink this. And now I'm saying, you know what? No, I don't want that color harmony anymore. I'm actually going to move it around and really play around this harmony and do something a little bit different. So I could be specific in a certain color I want to change. This particular one, or I could change this particular color. And once again, if I want to play around with the darkness of it or the saturation of the brightness, I can move that around too. any colors I want. And of course I can get rid of a color if I don't want it. There we go. And I can still move these around. Now if I go back to linking it, now this is not, it's not going to reset back to the original. It's going to keep this linked now. So hopefully I did a good job with making sure it was in that harmony, if that's what I'm looking for. Or I can kind of manually put the harmony back myself, which is cool. And there I go. And I can link that again, and now it's linked together, and however I move it is the harmony that I'm going to get. And that's kind of it with this, where I can play around with different colors. I can choose different harmonies, different hues, saturation, and brightness. In here, I could play around quite a bit. And even this one here, if I played around, if I choose this color itself, I click down here, what it does, it opens up the entire hue of that specific color, and it allows me to play with the saturation and the brightness. So once again, I can move this around and get very specific. And once again, it's changing all of them, but it's helping me find that area. If I go really dark, it's going to change all of them to darker. If I bring it up to more purity, it's going to make them all pure. If I bring it down to a tint, it's going to tint it. If I bring it down to a desaturation and tinted, whatever I want to do. So they all change, which is a kind of a cool way to play around with these colors too, coming up with really quick, interesting color combinations. And I just click off. I can do it for each individual one, doesn't really matter. Just playing around. Now, because this one was the kind of one in charge, let's say the color that was in charge, all of them changed when I move them around. Right now, we're noticing that only this color is changing, not the other ones. I'll click off of that. If I were to move this to the front and now play around with this one, it is still only changing on its own. All right, so we can move these around and play around with these as well and see how those work, and kind of just interesting way to play around again as well. And now I'm going to go back to assign, and I see that my colors have changed, which is fine. I can go back to the original colors here. I could play around there, which is great. I could reset again. Now let's pretend I'm actually happy with this. There's a couple of things I could do. I could save changes to this swatch group, and I'll change to these colors. Or I could create a new swatch group that these colors will now be added into my swatch panel. Or I can delete the swatch group altogether, which I don't want to do. I want to keep that in there. A couple other things we could do here. I can just close my swatch panel so I don't see it. And of course I could open it back up. That's another way we could play around. Now, I didn't really talk about up here. Now that I actually have some colors to play around with, you know what I'm going to do right now? I'm just going to let this one go. I'm just going to press OK. I don't want to make it a new swatch cut, and that's it. That's just playing around with my editing the colors. Now I'm going to select something that has lots of colors. It's an actual piece of artwork. Let's go to Edit, Edit Colors, Recolor Artwork. Now there is one thing I wanted to show you that is not currently a part of here. I'm going to cancel. I'm going to open this back up again into the original, the smaller version of this, not the advanced version. And, oh, no, open. It's okay. Edit. Edit Colors, Recolor Art. Here, this is pretty interesting, where it allows me to choose which colors are more prominent just by sliding them. And I think this is a really interesting thing here, where I'm actually able to move, and what it'll do, it'll start to utilize this color more and remove this color. So that kind of pink is kind of going to disappear a little bit more. More of the orange will show through. And more orange is happening there, as opposed to that. So some of these are changing. If I say I really want more pink and less orange, we're going to see a lot more pink being used. If I want, let's bring that over here. What if I want this kind of darker color? I want that being used a little bit more. Come on, there we go. Now that color, so I'm almost going like monochromatic here if I wanted to, because I'm a lot more. So this color is taking up a lot more real estate, I like to say, kind of say there. Or the pink, or if I wanted more of this to be shown. So what if I wanted more of that blue kind of being shown, or maybe even this black? I want more of the black. I want it to be darker for some reason. So this is another really interesting way to play around with this, which is just in the kind of default Recolor Artwork panel, so not the advanced option. So I really like this, but of course I could also play around with the colors here, the brightness and then the saturation separately. So I can make everything very bright, and I have control of that here. So obviously you see that the color wheel is changing just like it did in the edit option. And I could also just play with saturation if I want full saturation. And this is kind of what we're getting here. And of course, like I said, I move these around and they are staying intact, and I can unlink them. But here's another quick way to play around with different color options just inside of the default, not the advanced option, but the simple default options you have here. I do want to go back to advanced options. And obviously all the stuff I just played around with shows up here, which is totally fine. And auto showed me all the colors I currently have. Now I do have some options here to play around with the presets, color reduction options, but I like to do it manually here, so I'm not really going to play around with this too much. What I could also do is play around with these individual harmonies. So I do want to now get into the harmonies here. Whatever color I choose shows up here, and this will set the color harmony and where it starts with. So once again, if I chose this, let's say a yellow, the yellow shows up, and if I click on it right now, it will now take on the color harmony of that yellow. So all the harmony rules of that yellow. So I get the complement of that yellow, and I get a different complement where I'm showing tints, tones, and tints and shades. I get the split complementary of that, left complement, right complement. So it's all basing it on the color wheel. I get analogous color harmonies, monochromatic. I get shades of just that color that I chose. I get 3 triadic options, 3 tetradic options. I get a compound, 4 high contrast, and pentagram. So it's giving me all these great harmonies. So let's just choose them. I'm going to choose a tetrad. I'll do this tetrad of 4. And once again, it just puts those all into this because I'm in the assign option. It's going to assign that color harmony to the colors I currently chose. And once again, because I know how this works, I can now say, well, that black that I used, I want to make that a part of something too. So that's also going to be red. So now the black and the pink that were here are now going to be the red. And remember, I'm probably scaling the tints, which is, I think, one of the better options. Or that black, I feel it should be the green. Okay, now everything that's black is going to be this green. So we're playing around, and what you might not have noticed is these 2 colors, they are different, slightly different value, but they are, so I do have quite a few colors here. I have 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So at least it tells me I always know which colors, even though they're very similar. It does tell me how many colors I have, and I can kind of once again play around with those. I could play around with the individual HSB of each color. I can quickly randomize the saturations. I can quickly randomize the order that they're in. So there's a lot of different play I have here to play around in Recolor Artwork and quickly come up with some amazing color combinations I never would have thought of. And even from there, I was like, well, I don't really love this one too much, but I like the contrast. Okay, well, go to the yellow and start playing around with the yellow. If you're not happy with the way it's showing up or whatever the case is, you could individually, so it's a good starting point sometimes as well. You would quickly kind of find something that works for you. This is the Recolor Artwork panel. I hope this helps help you play around with color in Illustrator.